So what does always seem to be that when you travel really far to find a place and it's one of those one-time kind of location shots, you take the photo, it looks awesome in camera, and then you get back into the studio and you start editing and you think, this just doesn't quite look like the way I remember it. Now, this is a challenge that I always seem to have with landscape photos, but it's why I love using Lightroom so much, is because there's a lot of things that you can do there to try and recapture how you saw it or how you thought you saw it. Because remember, there's a difference from being there in person and sort of taking the photo and then coming back into the studio and looking back at it. Cameras capture things in different ways, our eyes see things in different ways. But what we want to try and do is sort of recapture how we felt when we took the photo and put that into our editing. And that's what we're going to try to do today with this landscape shot that we've got here. So this was one that I've kind of fully edited up, and in my head this is how I felt at the time when I took it. It was the height of summer, it was really warm there, it was a nice evening night as well, and we'd gone right the way up to the top of this place in Greece, and the composition just felt really nice through the trees. There was some foreground, I kind of had that mid-ground as well, and the background there. Overall, I just really like this. It's one of those shots that you take and you think, this is great. But when I came back into the studio to edit, I ran through a few different ways of trying to get this to work. Now, summer shots isn't something that I usually edit a lot of, and they can be challenging because you just want to plow them for the blues, and the blues really bring out the ocean and that, but it takes away from the depth of the image. So most of the magic that's happened here, and I would really encourage you to do with your own landscape shots, is to take your time with the masking and use the masking to really try and capture how you felt on that day. So let's go into this image, and if I just bring up my mask I've got, you can see I've got a few down the side here, a couple of different ones from skies to tackling that mid-ground to the foreground, and then some little detail works as well. So what we're going to do is remove all of these, go from scratch, see what our image looks like after we've done our basic edits or put a preset on, and then see if we can really make it pop. So I'm going to right click and delete all masks and watch my hard work go away. I always hate doing this, but I'll do it for the videos. So here we are with the original photo then, and going down here I've just done my usual basic edits that I would do with landscape stuff. I will have another video coming out soon on just a full landscape edit, but I felt like a quick one today just to help you with something that I always seem to struggle with coming away from summer and trying to edit summer photos. So mostly what you can see here is I've tackled the blues and tried to make these blues look really nice, but it just feels a bit flat and doesn't, to me, quite feel like the evening, which is the time that I took this photo. It's a little bit brighter, and part of that's to do with my edit as well. So I want to try and recapture some of how that light and warmth was actually hitting the landscape itself. And again, the camera's probably not caught it because it's not there as much as I remember it, but in order for me to be happy with the photo, it needs to hit with what's in my mind and not necessarily be fully accurate to what it was in the moment. It's got to play with exactly how I want to feel that, yes, that's what I want the photo to look like. And that's absolutely fine to do. It doesn't have to exactly match how it was on the day. It's all about, do you like your own photo? Because if you like it, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. So we come over into the masking then, and the first thing that I'm going to do is just bring in a little bit of darkness down here. So I'm going to grab a linear one, and again I do this a lot with foreground in landscape images, where I'll just grab a linear gradient and simply lower the exposure just to darken down that foreground. When I'm doing this, I tend to just raise the contrast slightly as well, and that just really helps bring a bit more of like darker values down at the bottom of the image. So once we've got that in, I'm then going to go the opposite side. I'm going to look at the sky. So we're going to create a new mask, but this time we're going to select sky. Now this will probably bleed over into some of the mountains. I can go in with my brush and remove this slightly. I'm not going to do detailed masking work today. If that's something you really want to look at, check out my Lightroom course, which is on the channel for free. And part 3 is all about going into masking. But what I am going to do with this then is I'm going to reduce the highlights slightly, and that's to bring out a bit more details in those clouds. You'll see if I go fully down, it helps the clouds, but we start introducing some noise. So I'm just going to lower it slightly there. And I'm also going to boost the dehaze. Again, if I pull the dehaze all the way up, you can see we get that nice separation, but we just want to put a little bit in. Now this is for me to really capture the details with the clouds that are going on there. But what I don't want is it to be really sort of dark. It's an evening sky, so I am going to bring my exposure up slightly on that there as well. Good, so toggling those on and off. You can see it's just a bit of light that's helping to frame where I want my eyes to be in the center there. So I'm kind of using these masks as a bit of a compositional device. And the next over one I want to tackle then is bringing in some warmth. So it was that evening sky, the sun is starting to set. That's how I remember it and feel it, so I'm going to bring some of that feeling back into the image. So to do that, I'm going to first of all tackle quite broadly, and then I'm going to go in a little bit more focused. So I'm going to grab another linear gradient, and I'm kind of imagining where I want my sun, and I want it to sort of streak across the photo here. So I'm going to pull that right the way across here, and I'm just going to increase my temperature slider. And this is my big trick, and the thing I want you to take away from this photo here is kind of that understanding of color plays a big part in your image. When you've got landscape images like this, you're going to be dealing with a lot of light. If everything's kind of that same color, that might be the thing that's holding back your edit from what you really want. So it's okay if we've got a massive blue type photo like this to bring in some more yellows and bring in some more warmth. So I've put one right across the sky there, which has kind of helped, but now I'm not too keen on some of the edits I've done in the sky. I kind of want this to actually be a little bit lighter in a way, so I don't like up the highlights that I've put in there, so I'm going to back those off and just make that sky feel a little bit more brighter. I'm just going to raise my highlights there as well. And that feels nicer to the yellow that I've just put in. Remember, you can always jump back and change these edits, it's not fixed. So we've got one round on. Now I'm going to add a radial gradient, and I'm going to put it over where I want this yellow to be focused, and where it's not going to have the biggest effect on the blues, which is really where the buildings and the cities are over here. So I'm just going to widen that, again be quite broad with it, and go a little bit aggressive on bringing in some of the yellows there. You can see now we seem to be starting to create this effect of having the sun present within our image. And that's now to me feeling more like I remember it on the day. So toggle those on and off. It's a really big effect, and by putting that shadow and light in first with the sky and the foreground has really helped with that too. Now it might be just a little bit too aggressive, so I'm just going to back off slightly and make sure that I'm happy with those. So next thing I'm going to do then is think about my details. And I did art for ages and painting for ages, so when you're doing painting you stack up everything that you do. So you paint your first layer on and you paint your second layer on. It's very hard to go back on that, so I kind of think this way when I'm doing my photo editings of I've done my broader strokes, now on top of this I'm going to do my details, and that's just enhancing what I've already done. So for the bottom I'm going to take a brush, I'm going to reduce my exposure, and I'm just going to simply paint almost like I would have with a vignette around the bottom there. And that's just to further enhance that darkness, and then I back off to a place where I'm happy. You can see that's just further enhancing all these darker values at the bottom there. I know this works with these types of images because I tend to raise my shadows quite a lot, which brings out more details in the tree, so kind of going back over with these darker patches helps to tame the light back down. So again, toggle on and off there. It's looking nice. Now I'm going to go in and start to work on some of these buildings. So keeping with this trend of the darkness side, I'm going to lower that. And I'm looking here really where these kind of tree line bits are, like where are these darker points of the image. So I'm going to go in quite fine with another brush, have the exposure down on that, and I'm going to go quite fine in there and just try and sort of brush across any areas that I think might stand out quite nice accents, such as kind of shadows where those trees are. There works quite nicely. Then let's just back off and look again. There's some more areas around there. So I'm just going to again go in with a small brush, sort of add in some more of these shadowy areas. Going to get bits down there by the building. And it looks a little bit odd at the moment, and that's because I'm going for it on quite a strong one. Once I've got my brush marks in and I feel happy with that, then I'm just going to back off that there. Such a small, like, little detailed difference, but it just, again, it helps that middle island. It helps it to stand out by darkening the bases of those trees there. Finally then, I'm going to do a little bit of localized sharpening on this. So I'm going to tackle just the buildings. When I have trees present in my image globally, I tend to reduce the clarity and not do as much sharpening. But instead, I'm going to bring that back in at a local level. I'm just going to go quite wide and like brush over these buildings here. Now what that helps to do as well is just pop out some of the colours a bit more. And because I've done that, I'm just going to reduce highlights in those areas slightly. Good, and then overall I'm just going to have a quick tweak of the masks. I feel like this yellow I could bring down a little bit more just to hit some more of that water. And go a little bit wider and stronger. And then same with that one there. I think it's crossing over a little bit too much, so I'm just going to back it off over there a little bit more. And there we go. Now I'm going to toggle on and off those masks so we can see our before, and then with our tweaks on, we've got our after. Now it's a very quick movement through that, and maybe not exactly as accurate to the one that I originally did, but the point I'm trying to get across to you here is that the masking is very, very powerful at trying to recreate the thing that's in your head. Take your time with it, especially with these landscapes. Remember that you can always bring in extra colour, even if it's not there in the image. Try and recreate the sun. Create your depth with those different types of light and shadowing, and think like a painter. Stack things on top of each other. Do your lighting first, do your colour on top, do your details after that. Think that way, and that will stop you from over editing as well. So I hope you found some values with those tips. Take them away, try them in your own edits as well. If you like what you saw today, please do subscribe. It really helps the channel. You can also find my Lightroom course on this channel as well. If you head over to my website, you'll get presets, you will get free raw files, stuff to help you out. And if you really, really found it useful, then you can donate below. Apart from that, I'll see you in the next one.